Yo peeps, big up on yourself. Welcome back to the channel, guys. People, I promised that I would be uploading more videos and I want to change up the content a bit. I've been promising to change the content a bit for a while now, and now that I've taken a year break and I'm ready to start creating more content, I want to change the direction of the channel. As a matter of fact, your feedback has inspired me to dive back into creating more content for the channel. Now, apart from my usual vlogs, I've been pondering the kind of content that would be impactful, educational, and engaging. So, after much thoughts, I've decided to venture into true crime stories. Dive in deep into cases that have not only shocked communities throughout Jamaica, but have left a lasting impact on our society there. Today, I'll be discussing a case. I think it's close to many of us' heart there in Jamaica. This case has persisted in the memories of many Jamaicans for nearly 40 years. In fact, just 2 years ago, articles still appeared in the Jamaica Gleaner about this unsettling mystery. It's a case that has resonated with many Jamaicans, and I've done some research aiming to provide more context, more depth, and the sad reality of the situation there in Jamaica. Even after 40 years, we are still grappling with unanswered questions surrounding this case. I think it serves as a haunting reminder of the enduring challenge of crime in Jamaica, especially murders. So guys, without further ado, let's dive deep into the intricacies of this tragic story and try to piece together the mysteries of the past. Now, picture it. Kingston, Jamaica, 1983. A crime sends shockwaves across the nation. The sun had barely risen on May 4th, 1983, when 14-year-old Diane Smith left her home on Stony Hill Road, St. Andrew. Her destination, Immaculate Conception High. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. Her body strangled using her own necktie and riddled with stab wounds, was later discovered in a gully named Waterworks. A disturbing detail that would lead to a nationwide outcry. Now, the act itself was brutal. Diane was sexually assaulted, strangled with her own necktie, and left bearing fatal stab wounds. This level of violence, in my view, suggests not just intent, but possibly pent-up aggression, rage, or perhaps even prior criminal tendencies. But more than anything, I can't help thinking that when I see cases like these, it has to do with passion. So this comes across to me as a crime of passion. This perhaps was a person who knew Diane well, who perhaps had some kind of relationship with Diane. But who was Diane Smith? Let's rewind a bit and dive into her story. Imagine a third form student at the esteemed Immaculate Conception High School. This is one of the top high schools in Jamaica today. She was just about 7 days away from her 15th birthday. An article from the Jamaica Gleaner gave us a glimpse into her life. Diane lived with her mom, Mistress Etta Smith, and though they didn't talk about her dad, it's likely he was in the picture. And let's not forget about her younger siblings, Christopher and Gail Smith. Now guys, let's be honest. We have all been there with our teenage dreams, big aspirations. Well, Diane had them by the truckload. While most of us at that age were trying to decode algebra or the language of teen romance, Diane was setting her sights on the stars. Described by her folks as the kind of girl who would finish her homework before doing anything else. Yes, she was disciplined and forward thinking, I believe. Her friends recalled her vibrant spirit. Some even said if charisma had a look, Diane would be its poster child. Her radiant presence wasn't just confined to turning heads anywhere she went, but lighting up minds with her enthusiasm and infectious zest for life. Yet, on that ill-fated day, perhaps to beat the morning bell at school or just for a change of scenery, she took a path ominously dubbed the rapist shortcut. And that school bell, it would never ring in her ears again. It's no stretch to imagine that many unsuspecting girls might have been targeted here, given the pathway its grim name, the rapist shortcut. Now, the chilling details of Diane's murder made headlines, of course, but it wasn't just the brutality that caught the nation's attention. It was also the mysterious circumstances surrounding it. The Jamaica Gleaner reported on August 8, 1983, that after relentless investigations into Diane's brutal slaying, a breakthrough finally came. A 32-year-old casual worker named Dennis Jenkins, often referred to as Shorty. I'm sure you guys have heard of Shorty. He was arrested, but that was just the beginning. The police began hunting for another man closely associated with Jenkins, expecting another breakthrough. Now, here is the perplexing twist. Prior to the arrest of Shorty, the police had arrested 6 men to include a snow cone vendor. Now, of course, these men were detained for questioning, thanks to a seemingly circumstantial piece of evidence. Diane, a day before her tragic death, had ripped a photograph of herself from this vendor's cart. But as investigators continued, the vendor and most others were released. Only Jenkins remained in custody. Now, this is my take, guys. While the snow cone vendor was cleared of Diane's murder, the oddity of the interaction the day before her murder is unsettling for me. Why was her picture on this cart? How did it get there? Was this an isolated incident or part of a pattern? No, of course, the act of Diane angrily ripping her photograph off the vendor's cart paints a picture of violation. Diane obviously felt violated. Now, the vendor may have felt humiliated, especially if this confrontation occurred in public. Feelings of humiliation could potentially escalate into a desire for revenge. Now, could the snow cone vendor seeking retribution have enlisted Jenkins, probably a known troublemaker, to frighten or harm Diane? A situation that spiraled out of control and probably culminated in the tragedy. No, the snow cone man could have actually killed Diane himself too. These are the things that I have thought about when I did my research on this story, guys. Days later, another development rocked the case. The second man who the police sought was arrested, and he was 33-year-old Leroy Wallen. Now, the Jamaica Gleaner reported that Wallen worked as a baggage man on a bus route between Kingston and St. Mary. The two accused, Wallen and Jenkins, were believed to have been spotted together on the very day of the murder. Now, as news continued to unravel, Diane's family was shattered by grief, of course, and in a heart-wrenching moment during the preliminary examination into the charges, and by this time, both Wallen and Jenkins were charged with Diane's murder. Diane's mother, overcome with emotions, broke down as she recounted the day she learned of her daughter's death. Now, to imagine the trauma and pain of losing a child in such a brutal manner is definitely beyond comprehension. What's even more haunting was the testimony of Diane's brother, Christopher. Now, a seemingly ordinary morning, Diane left home a mere 10 minutes before Christopher. On his way to school, Christopher returned home briefly to grab his necktie because he had forgotten about it. And he and his sister Gail, Gail waited for him and he caught up with Gail. And his sister Gail did cross paths with Jenkins on that very morning on Stony Hill Road, right? Christopher was familiar with Jenkins, having seen him pick Aki in the area before. Now, that day, nothing seemed out of the ordinary to Christopher. It was a regular morning. He had seen Jenkins many times before. Now, another witness, Clovis Bogle, a shopkeeper from Constant Spring, paints a rather ordinary picture of Jenkins also. On the morning of May 4th, this shopkeeper purchased about 6 dozen Aki from Jenkins. Now, Bogle, while familiar with Jenkins, didn't notice anything unusual about his demeanor either. Now, it's fascinating how such mundane exchanges become so crucial in a murder trial. Now, then there is also Mildred Pollock, another witness who was said to be a housekeeper. That witness on May 4th, around 3 p.m., saw Jenkins. That witness was with her mother and cousin, and they saw Jenkins and Wallen at the Constant Spring golf course, which was very close to the crime scene, by the way. Now, this seemingly insignificant encounter would later serve as a critical piece of evidence linking the suspects to the crime scene, or the crime scene's vicinity. Right? Interestingly, even though Pollock had known Jenkins for nearly 8 years, it was that day she observed Jenkins interact with Wallen. Now, based on my research, it did not say whether or not she knew Wallen from before. But apparently, what she said was that this was the first time she saw both men together. So I think that perhaps, had caused some suspicion there. Now, apparently, Jenkins told Pollock that Wallen was his co-worker. I don't know co-worker in what way, because they said that Wallen was a baggage man. Jenkins was a casual worker, probably him do little yard work and them something there, right? But this connection painted like a web of relationships in the investigation. Now, as the trial unfolded, the proceedings intensified with the evidence presented, including articles examined at the government laboratory. The prosecution meticulously marshaled this evidence, attempting to stitch together a kind of coherent timeline and narrative. As a matter of fact, there was a pig pen close by to the crime scene where it was said that articles of clothing were found that were said to belong to Jenkins, but Jenkins outright denied that. The defense, said that there was nothing that linked Jenkins to those pieces of clothing. Now, of course, in 1983, DNA evidence was in its infancy, and Jamaica do struggle to use DNA evidence these days. So can you imagine 1983? There was DNA evidence wasn't even something that came into mind. Now, during a rigorous cross-examination, though, of Pollock, attorney Earl Witter, who is the attorney for Jenkins, challenges Pollock's statement, suggesting possible inconsistencies in her account. A tense moment in the courtroom underscoring the gravity of the case. And apparently Pollock had made some statement prior to the trial that did not coincide with the statement that she made when she was giving her testimony, right? And so it was challenged. Now, other witness brought forth some perplexing details, of course, adding to this already convoluted narrative. For instance, on the evening of May 4th, 1983, a local named Grant reported seeing Jenkins cooling off in an odd position in a culvert close by, trying to remain unseen. Now, the question was asked, was he hiding something or simply innocently taking a rest? As Jenkins had said that he was just cooling out, right, after picking ackee. Now, when this witness was cross-examined, the witness said that, well, he could not tell whether or not Jenkins was trying to hide or anything. He just said that Jenkins was in a very funny position. No, I don't know if Jenkins was stooping down or he was lying down. The research that I did not reveal anything like that. But there's a chilling twist. Detective Sergeant Lorenzo Moran's encounter with Wallen the following day, that's the day after the murder, discovered an ice pick concealed on Wallen's person. He saw a bulge and he was searched and the ice pick was found. Right? Now this presented another layer of suspicion. Although they did not outline whether or not this ice pick was actually used as the murder weapon. It was not, they did not say whether or not this ice pick was the ice pick that was used to stab Diane Smith multiple times. Now the murder trial, as reported by the Jamaica Gleaner on October 2nd, 1984, dived deep into the realm of scientific evidence also, introducing layers of complexity. As a matter of fact, vaginal smears taken from 15-year-old Diane Smith's body and the penile smears from the two men charged with her murder were presented, revealing traces of gonorrhea. Mrs. Yvonne Cruikshank, a government analyst and forensic biologist at the time, disclosed this unsettling discovery to the Home Circuit Court where the trial was happening. Having been on the scene on May 4th, 1983, when Smith's body was found, Mistress Cruikshank detailed her observations and the tests she conducted on specific exhibits. Right? An American forensic scientist, Mr. Nips, the chief criminologist at the Regional Crime Laboratory in Fort Pierce, Fort Lauderdale at the time, contradicted her findings. With over 15 years of experience, during which he rendered opinions in more than 3,000 cases of human hair. So this forensic scientist was well experienced. Well, Mr. Nips disputed Mr. Cruikshank analyst, particularly in relation to several hairs found on Diane Smith's shoe, hand, and slip. This clash of expert opinions cast doubts on the credibility of the government's evidence, of course, further complicating the trial's proceedings. And let me just say this, guys. Once there is any doubt about the evidence, right, then of course, the accused will have to be given the benefit of the doubt. Now, based on the evidence, Leroy Wallen, Jenkins' co-accused, was the first to be exonerated. He actually faced no conclusive evidence linking him to Diane Smith's murder. Consequently, of course, his lawyer Jack Hines and Hensley Williams presented a no case submission. As a result, Wallen was released, with the legal teams of both Wallen and Jenkins subsequently collaborating on the case. Now, amid the courtrooms charged atmosphere, Jenkins made an unsourced statement recounting his activities on the fateful day and asserting his innocence, right? He said that on that day he was merely picking ackee, like something he has always done. And he said that he sold some ackee to one of the witnesses, Bogle, who we mentioned earlier. At some point throughout the day, he went and buy 1 pound of flour and then buy some fish. And then he went home to Cassava Peace to stay with his sister's children. Now guys, after an intense trial, the jury delivered their verdict. And I was not surprised about this verdict. Jenkins was found not guilty, as you guys may already know. Of course, the courtroom's reaction was a discord of relief and shock. But the shadow of doubt and Diane's unresolved murder continued to loom large. Now, rumors started spreading after that, guys, pointing fingers at various potential culprits, even linking a prominent politician to the crime. But concrete evidence remained elusive. Years after the trial, many believe that Jenkins was secretly shipped to the US after his acquittal, where he was allegedly killed, put in a barrel, and sent back to Jamaica. The origin of this rumor remains elusive. Interestingly, in 2003, the Jamaica Observer writer Pat Roxburgh Wright debunked this myth by finding and interviewing a very alive Jenkins. According to Jenkins, the furthest he has ever traveled was to the airport in Palisades, never having held even a passport. His candid conversation, of course, about his time in custody from the controversial gonorrhea allegation, which was humorously and effectively debunked by Jenkins himself. The confession he claims he never made. So the police claim that he confessed to the murder and himself never confessed to the murder. This paints a vivid picture of the struggles he endured, of course. Jenkins maintained his innocence, providing an alibi that he was simply selling akis the morning Diane was murdered. His arrest seemed to be a product of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, guys, the broader implication of this case, as defense Earl Witter suggested, was that it wasn't just Jenkins on trial, but the entire Jamaican justice system. Despite the acquittal, of course, the murder remains unsolved, with various speculations floating around, right? We heard about the implication of the politician. Diane Smith's murder after decades remains an unsolved mystery that has shaped discussions on justice, evidence, and the court of public opinion in Jamaica. Now, guys, I just want to say this. Witnesses, the eyes, the ears of any crime, their testimony can shine a light on the darkest, most obscured moments. It's through them that we got first-hand accounts, details, and observations. In the Diane Smith case, the testimonies of witnesses like Mildred Pollock and Grant, of course, played a crucial role in painting a kind of narrative. Yet, I believe we also need to reckon with a difficult truth. Human memory is fallible. It can be influenced by emotions, by leading questions, by the passage of time. As much as witnesses want to relay accurate information, sometimes details get foggy, leading to potential inaccuracies. This doesn't mean they're lying, but it does mean we must proceed with caution. For example, in Diane Smith's trial, when confronted by aggressive cross-examinations, these potential inconsistencies came to light, further complicating an already intricate case. But I want to kind of dig deeper here, guys, and give my analysis of the case and ask some questions here. Were Jenkins and Wallen truly the perpetrators? Or were they merely convenient suspects in a tragic murder? Was the net cast upon them too quickly, influenced by prior records or reputation? We don't know. Jamaica, like many places, has a culture of hesitancy when it comes to coming forward with information. Informer for dead or snitches get stitches. These are just some of the things we hear in Jamaica. These phrases highlight the danger often associated with speaking out, especially when the crime might be linked to someone powerful. Could there have been a more sinister figure lurking behind Diane's murder? Perhaps someone with the influence to sway investigations, suppress evidence, or even intimidate our potential witnesses. If such a figure existed, it's not hard to imagine why witnesses would hesitate or even flat out refuse to come forward. The fear of retaliation, both personal and against one's family, can be a powerful silencer. Guys, in wrapping up our deep dive into Diane's case, Smith's case today, we're reminded of the dual nature of witnessing. It can be both a beacon of truth and a source of potential misdirection. Our quest for justice demands both skepticism and an open ear. The unanswered questions surrounding Diane's tragic death serve as a stark reminder. Justice isn't just about finding a culprit. It's about uncovering the truth, however complex and multifaceted it may be. Guys, thanks for joining me today, and thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. Guys, as per usual, click on that subscription button, guys. Click also on the notification bell so that you will be alerted every time I upload a new video. Guys, as we bid farewell to this case, let's carry its lesson forward. Always questioning, always seeking truth. Until next time, my beautiful people, walk good. Yeah, man.